from Kevin and Evan. Okay, who's who? Because I always mix it up.
I'm Evan.
Oh, hi, Evan.
Hello.
And I'm Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
His name is Evan Kyle.
Right.
And a lot of times people just call him Kyle.
Oh, okay.
Occasionally I get called Kyle. It's not a good name situation for a team. Kevin and Evan. It's not great.
Okay, I want to point out before we get into the main topics that we're going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the dumb dads, and you guys have been on the podcast before. It's episode 102. Mm-hmm. I went and looked back to see which number it was. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ask you guys to like kind of introduce yourselves and, you know, like talk about your families and how you guys became friends. And I know that's all in the episode 102, but we had major technical difficulties.
Yeah, correct.
And I just remember you guys blamed me. Do you remember?
Yes.
Sort of, yeah.
We know it's our fault, and that's why I feel like we're in a studio today.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
were like, I'm
These
in a hole on
fuckers.
this because I'm going to make sure it's going to work. Because we 100% were like, what are you doing wrong? What's happening?
I know.
It was our fault.
It was.
It was our fault. And we didn't know. It was like the tiniest technical issue. Mm-hmm. It was when we plugged our mic into the computer, which we had done many times before.
Yeah.
It said, would you like to use, like, one type of audio would you like to use? We used multi-track because we thought, oh yeah, both of our voices should be on a different track.
Yeah. But
the power that the device needs to do that cannot be supplied by the computer. And so it was like failing. But we could hear ourselves in our microphones.
Yeah.
And we couldn't hear you. So we're thinking like, why would that be something here? Like everything here seems to be working fine.
It's her.
We had a podcast the next week. And it happened again. And as soon as it happened, I immediately thought of you.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't in their podcast anymore.
Yeah.
I went, oh no.
Oh my gosh, we were enough.
Poor Renee. I know, you guys are probably like this fucking Canadian, like with her
Oh
stupid technology.
Surprised they even have electricity.
I know.
I remember that feeling. The moment it like the little noise happened again, it was like this weird digital noise. Kevin and I looked at each other like, oh man, we're in trouble.
We have to send an apology card. Okay, so to get started, I thought you guys could just give us a little bit of background on how you met, because I like that story, and also how you got into TikTok, like how that all came about.
Sure. We both moved. He's from Boston. I'm from Seattle area. Moved to LA to try to do something in the industry. We both wanted to be comedians, actors. So a few years into it, one of my friends, a mutual friend that we didn't know each other, suggests, hey, I've heard you want to do sketch comedy. There's a sketch comedy company that's having tryouts. One of my friends does it. I think you'd be good for it. Sort of the same conversation happened with Kevin. We both knowing like, sure. So we try out, we get in, and then they just put you in a cast of people. And that cast of people is in charge. You got to write a whole hour show of sketch comedy and do it live like every Friday for 8 weeks, the whole thing. So it was like so exciting, so nerve-wracking to like test your chops and really get going. And the first night that I was in this, our director, Katie, one of our good friends, Katie, who was directing the show, we were sitting in her apartment and in walked Kevin and his wife, Annie, who's also a very talented writer. They walked in and we were in a show together, just like that. And we wrote a whole show not knowing who each other were. We all brought like sketches that we thought were funny. And then, I mean, that's the day we met. And that was in 2013.
Yep.
So you guys just remained friends and...
Yeah, I mean, for my wife and I, we had just moved to LA at the beginning of the year. So we had been in New York. That's where my wife and I met. We were there for 7 years, wanted to change things up. We knew we wanted to have kids and for some reason didn't want to have kids in New York.
Can't imagine why.
Go on the subway once.
Can't imagine why.
Go on the subway once.
One time.
You'll get it. So we moved to LA and like, we're spending the first half of the year trying to find a job, and then we're not like immediately jumping into the industry. But then, we started doing that. So it was like the first thing that we did when we moved out here. And then we were in that company for a long time. And then we did a web series together. And then everybody started breaking off as you get older. And then Evan had a kid. My wife and I had a kid. And then, we were already still like in touch and talking to each other. But once you have kids, it's like, it's even a better excuse to hang out with one another, to have that companionship. So we did that for a while and then started the podcast first because we were stay-at-home dads.
So when would you have started the podcast?
We started the podcast in 2019, right before my son was born.
Oh, okay.
My wife, I don't remember I think it was only like a month out from my wife's due date. I already had my daughter. Evan already had 2 kids. So I was like, this is a good time to start a podcast. Like we can like start it here. I already kind of know what's coming for the most part. So we'll be able to kind of document this and talk about parenting. So we did that for a while. And then when the pandemic hit, and everybody's just at home, nobody knows what's going on. You're afraid to like be on the same sidewalk as somebody. Like it was gnarly back then. That's when we started, getting that itch again of like being creative because we couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And
The industry shut down. We had no auditions.
yeah,
We're just at home with our kids.
everyone's at home.
And so it was like, but we'd always wanted to do something more together. We just didn't know what. It was just like, so then.
Yeah, then my wife was on TikTok first, and she was like, "You guys should get on TikTok." I had it for like, I think a month or 2 before I was willing to post anything because I was like, "What is happening here? What is going on? What is this world?"
It's a jungle of activity on TikTok.
And I had to just like study it and just like watch as many videos as possible and be like, "Okay, I think I know." And then we started doing that, and obviously rocky start, but then stuff started going.
So were you guys like, okay, we're going to join TikTok and this is specifically what we're going to do? Like we're going to make these little, because you said you were into sketch comedy and all your TikToks are like little sketches.
Yeah, not necessarily.
I would say yes in the fact that it was parenting oriented. It was it was a branch off of the podcast, which is why we're still, even though like our TikToks and Instagram accounts are way more popular than the podcast.
Yeah.
It's still at Dumb Dad Pod because we started it as a branch off of like, we could do something to, I don't know, promote the podcast. Maybe we'll get some people. And then we kind of played around with the idea. And then we went back to sketch.
So we had an Instagram account that we would just randomly post stuff to. I mean, we'd like take our kids to the zoo and then we'd like post a funny picture and talk about it. And, or like, and then we record it again. So we'd post a picture of us recording, that kind of stuff. But Instagram, I think they had video, but Reels wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why TikTok started. So it was kind of like a platform. And we had tried to post stuff on Instagram
we did something
videos.
Stupid called Q-tips.
Yeah.
Quarantine tips.
Oh,
and we called them
hey,
Q-tips.
that's smart.
And we did that before we knew what TikTok was.
We're like,
we're doing videos. We're real clever. My wife's like, there's a whole platform.
Yeah. Which is great because it was like, we can put this somewhere it belongs. Like these ridiculous ideas that we had, and so then we were lucky enough to be able to flip it once Reels took off, and now we post on both platforms every day for the most part.
Yeah. I'm always amazed. For me, it's funny how like I was the reverse. I was like, oh, TikTok is like, like growing so much, but then my podcast is now much bigger than my social media things. I think so. Like most people, if they see me, they're like,
I wasn't questioning.
Can we see some numbers, please?
But yeah, it's funny how that happens. You're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like this is what I'm gonna do now, and then it's like, oh, this other thing takes off. Like, yeah. So what I'm impressed with you guys with TikTok is how it's so consistent. Like, and I was thinking, I cannot be consistent. Like, how I was trying to do like the mom room hotline things and stuff.
Yeah.
And I like they did so well, and I'm like, but I can't. And maybe I'm just not like a sketch comedian person, because then I get like a troll comment and I'm like, oh, this fucker's going down. And I'm like, video reply. Comments. Yeah. But how do you guys not get sucked into like wanting to create any other kind of content? Like, I love how it's like you just stick to what you're doing and that's it.
I think part of it is because now, again, we moved here so we've both been in a couple commercials and done a few things here and there. But we were thinking like, if we could get something like this popular enough, it might be able to have our agents like get us more auditions. This is what we're getting all geeking out about.
Is that true? I always wonder that, because social media is like it runs everything. I feel. Yeah. I was listening to this podcast and they were saying how like even big movies, they will choose actors that have a massive following because it's like free marketing, which is smart.
It's smart. Yeah, I mean, there's talent everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the thing, and especially in a city like this where people move, there's talent everywhere. There's talented people all over the place. So that's what we're thinking. Like, maybe we can garner some more auditions. We can get help get our creative juices flowing that way or whatever. But then once it started working, we thought maybe this is a really good thing for us to be doing. Maybe somebody will see something like this someday. So that's what our focus was: consistency. Like, if somebody sees, because social media is very much like that. You see a video come through, it's got hundreds of thousands of likes, millions of views. You watch it, it's hilarious. You go to their page, they have nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one moment they had.
Mm.
So what we thought was, if we can be consistent with our writing and our comedy and everything through a parenting lens is what we wanted it to be. If we can make that consistent, so if something like that happens to us, then they go to our page, then they'll see that it's all like that.
Yeah.
It's all like sort of the same feel, the same vibe. That's what our aim was initially. It was like, let's just stick to like making this as consistently as good as we can make something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we definitely looked at, as you're saying, we've looked at like the other whatever aspects of like social media, like other approaches to videos that you can make. And I've watched them and like, cause like, this person said this thing. I kind of want to do a thing about this. And then will watch a video where somebody did that. Somebody did a response to a comment or something. And then I'll go down the rabbit hole and go, I'm not interested in that. Of like what the like repercussions of that is.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm so happy to make people angry. I love it. I love a nasty comment. They fill me up inside.
Me too.
I love it because it's like it's so unnecessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of that. It's no judgment anybody who does it. I just like I have more fun just like creating a sketch, filming it, editing it, putting it on, and then watching and going, this sucks. I could have done so much better. You're an idiot. You should quit. Don't ever do this again. And then doing it again the next day.
Doing it again the next
so
day.
fun.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. You can go down the rabbit hole of all kinds of different stuff, but our aim is just always to be, I mean, there's enough for us to worry about being parents of little children and the stresses of life than to worry about something that somebody says that could trigger us into making some type of reply. It's like we just want to bring a little bit of levity to the insanity of parenting. That's
Yeah.
what we're trying to do.
But
How many TikToks do you put out in a week or like in a day? Do you guys post every day?
We
almost every day, 6 to
Almost
7
every
a week, probably.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We wanted to do multiple, and sometimes we do, very rarely, because we'll do like a podcast clip and then put a video with it. But sometimes we only have time to just do the podcast clip. But yeah, it's hard. It's like one of those things like we do parenting content and it's been pretty successful, but because we're parents, we don't have time to do more content.
Yes.
It's like the double-edged sword of like, man,
Yeah.
if I didn't have kids, I'd be able to do more content. But if I didn't have kids, I wouldn't have content.
And do you find it hard to shut it off? Because that's like, I try to be mindful of once Milo comes home from school, it's like, okay, like it's done now. Because I feel like with social media, you can constantly be going, like liking comments, like replying to DMs. Like, how do you guys manage that part of it? And I guess I'm different because I story throughout the day. So I constantly feel like I need to be like active in social media. And then there's my mom who like manages, she like, Renee, somebody asked you a question in your post back there. Why aren't you answering it? I'm like,
Yes.
Mom, like, so how do you manage
because
that?
it's a lot, Mom. It's so much.
I'm like, Mom, if you know the answer, go answer it. She's like frig.
Oh, don't give her that freedom. Don't do that.
That's a dangerous game to play.
serious rabbit hole. The first hour is like our cutoff. So post a video for that first hour. Be on top of that video. Reply to almost every comment if it's if it's worth replying to. Like comments, respond, and do all that. Then after an hour, the video either is going to get a life of its own or it won't. And we just we will. It's not to say we won't comment on a comment after that. Sometimes we have, but it's like that first hour we're like trying to engage, trying to get it going, trying to make it pop. And then after that, it's either will or it won't. And then it's kind of like that way. It's not obsessing too much.
Yeah, and you're able to like move on to the next thing, I guess.
But we, I mean, we're so incredibly grateful for all the followers that we have, like what we've been able to do together. We used to work at a bar together, and it was like probably going back to that after the pandemic, and it was probably what we were going to end up doing. And we've been able to make this our thing. And so yeah, we try to if people direct message us, we try to reply. We do our absolute best to do all that, and it's just. Sort of the similar, I guess our wives are also like, hey, somebody left a really nice comment on something, they'll let us know in case we miss it or something, because it's important to us to, and I think for the most part, we've never like paid for followers or done that promote your page thing. Like we feel like our followers are our organic followers, and so it's important to us.
Yeah.
To keep engaging with them.
How old are your children?
I have a daughter who's 6 and a son who's 3.
Okay.
My son is 7 and my daughter's 4.
Okay. Let's talk about family planning.
Yeah.
And how did you know that you guys wanted to have a second? Because this is my struggle right now. So I ask everyone now lately that comes on the podcast. I'm like, but how did you know? Like, did you have a conversation about it? Were you like on the fence, or were you like, we know we want to have 2 kids?
I know that before we had kids, we wanted 3.
Yeah, that's me too.
And then we had 1, and we were like, maybe this is enough.
It's a lot.
And then we had my daughter, so she's 3 years older. So I guess when she was around 2, I mean, it's one of those things. It's like you're getting older, like especially on I know a lot of people have kids older, especially in like big cities, like where you're like chasing a career and stuff. You're holding our kids as long as possible. So it is one of those things. It's like, hey, you either got to do it or you don't. And so it's kind of that conversation we were having with my wife. And so we would do that. And then it was funny because I think she was like nervous and in denial because I remember like the first time she said, I haven't had it's weird. I thought I'd start my period by now. And I was like, she's pregnant. And it went I think like a week before I like came home from work one day and she was standing there with a pregnancy test. She goes, I'm pregnant. And I was like, I know.
Yeah, I know.
I've known for a week now. Like, you didn't think you were. But it was important to us it was for our daughter that we wanted them to have a companionship. That was like the big thing. And that was also the window that was closing. And I feel good about the age difference. They're almost exactly 3 years apart. And that was good for us because my daughter at 3 was old enough that there were certain things she was self-sufficient at. So we didn't have to like juggle too. Like my brother and sister-in-law, I mean, God love them. How dedicated they are. Their kids are like, I forget what it is, but it's like a year and a half. So it was intense. They had a 1.5-year-old when they had their second. And it's like, that's...
My friend right now has 3 they were under 2. She has twins, and then they had a little baby. I was like...
They're the twins first, and then they had one more.
Yeah.
Usually hear the other way around, and that's a nightmare.
Twins first, yeah.
That was our situation. So when I was a kid, my parents had twins. So my younger brother and sister are twins, and we're all within like 22 months of each other.
Oh, okay.
So I grew up with a little brother and sister, so I always had my little brother and sister, companions, as Kevin said. My wife grew up as an only child. Oh, okay. And always really wished she had a brother or a sister, like some of her friends did. And that was one of the biggest things that came down to it. I'm a little bit older. We're both a little bit older than Kevin and his wife. And so, but we still felt that window closing, even just in our own lives about how old we are and all these kinds of things. So I wasn't sure. Same thing. I thought, 2 kids probably. And then we had a kid, and it was like, I can't believe how, it's not like I was so surprised at how much work it's a lot of work, but I couldn't believe how fulfilling it was to have a child and be with him. And, just, it was an amazing feeling. But I also felt like it could be enough. I think if that's the decision, I'm very happy with that. I don't feel like the huge desire let's do this all over again. She wanted to, and so it was like, okay, so let's do it then. Same thing, good age window, about 3 years. And so we just went for it and thought they'll be buddies and we'll make it work. We'll figure out how to make it work. But I would never recommend it. You shouldn't do it.
See, this is the thing. People with 2 or 3 are like, oh my God, like I would do it again if I had to, but it's so hard. Yeah, no, you shouldn't do it. I'm like, well, that doesn't help me very much.
No, I was kidding. I mean, it's... I think we've had this conversation before. There's something really incredible about, like, if, my wife and I will be like in the kitchen making dinner or something, and they're in their room, like making each other laugh, both making each other laugh, giggling. And then they run out, both dressed up in something, or they're coloring and they both are drawing the same picture, or they come in and say, look, we drew each other. Like, those little things are...
It's always the little moments.
It is. I mean, that's exactly how parenting feels. I mean, whether you have 1 or 5, I mean, I think that's... When those little moments happen in your life as a parent, as a person, as having little children, it's like an emotion you can't describe, and but you can only experience and have by having children and dealing with all the other shit that they put you through.
I will say the fear of going from 1 to 2, partly, I mean, I'm not speaking for everyone, but like partly stems from like how much your life changed from 0 to 1. Like your life completely changed.
That's what you're like.
So you're afraid
comparing
that's
it to
gonna happen again, and it's not.
Yes.
Your house is already dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You already haven't showered.
Yeah.
You can't not shower more. But there is that, like when you go to go from 1 to 2, there is obviously more stress that comes with it. But like for the most part, you're in a rhythm, and I feel like when you have the second, it is kind of like, oh, okay, like this kind of works out. And those moments, as sweet as they are, and we have those as well, they're also nice for you because you don't feel like it gives you the break. That's the best part of having your kid having a sibling is like they have somebody to play with. I don't have to get on the floor. My knees are popping anyway. This is great.
I remember my cousin telling me when Milo was a baby, she was like, you don't want to be that mom that has to play with her kid at the park because you only have one kid. I was like, and so like 2 weeks ago, I'm playing. Milo's like, mommy, come. Like he wants me to play on, like get up on the play structures with him. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like I was thinking back to that comment that she said to me. But Milo's 4 right now. And like you were saying, I feel like if we had a baby, he is so independent now. So nice. It takes the stress off of introducing someone into the family that is completely dependent, you know? But my husband was an only child as well. And he's like, it was fine. Like, I'm fine.
He's not fine.
I think he has trauma.
Doesn't he cut people open for a living?
He does.
Yeah, he's not okay.
We need another child. But I forget what I was going to say. Oh yeah, I think he has trauma so when Milo was newborn, because he is a surgeon and he's so used to getting up all the time and then falling back asleep instantly. I am not that way. Once I'm up, I'm up. He would do a lot of the nighttime and sleep with the monitor and do like the nighttime feedings. So I think he has like PTSD from that moment because he's like, I can't do that again. Because he was like working full time and
I left scissors
doing the night.
I was so tired.
He's like, I can't do that again. I'm like, it won't be the same. Like, I don't think we'll be as anxious as like second time parents.
I don't think so. I can't speak for you, but I don't think you will. I also think that's, by the way, going back to that other comment, there's such BS about like you don't want to be that mom with the play structure. Like I brought both my kids to the playground, like a couple weeks ago, and my daughter is still like, come do this with me.
Some people say that.
That doesn't stop because like she knows her younger brother can't do this, but dad can, and dad can't. But like dad's lying to himself and her. And then does it, and then it doesn't feel so good after.
And can we just take a moment on this podcast to stop downplaying slides? I mean, slides are fun.
Well,
not when you're 6'3".
Yeah,
you're done almost as soon as you start.
Like I'm 6 feet.
Your feet are already at the bottom of the slide.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
Yeah.
What's next?
And like slides used to be that metal. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And then they would get burning hot in the sun. But now they're all like plastic and you don't get as much like momentum going down.
Did you write a Yelp review?
I should.
You should
for the local park.
Yeah. Sternly worded Yelp review. Usually fixes most things, I believe.
Yeah. They'll come put it in a metal slide, I'm sure. Okay, let's talk about default parenting because I'm curious what the dynamic is in your families. Obviously, you guys are super involved dads. You were home. What is the dynamic in your family with regard to like one parent being the default parent? Or would you say you guys are both like it's kind of like equal?
It's a mess now. Well, before the pandemic, not before my son was turned 1 like a month after like the stay-at-home order came out. So for 4 years, I was the stay-at-home dad, and my wife worked from like 9. I forget, it was like 9 to 6 or 9 to 7 sometimes in an office, and I would drive her there, and because we only had the one car, or if I had nothing going on that day, she'd take the car. But usually I would drive her with the kids because then you have options to go to the zoo or park or whatever. And so I was the default parent on a lot of that stuff for 4 years, obviously with like breaks here and there, and then we had a good rhythm on that, and we had some interesting quote gender swap dynamics of like, you know, because stereotypically the mom is the stay at home and the dad is working. And I remember my wife and I have talked about it, and we've laughed about it because like, who cares? But like there had been moments where she came home from work. I had a day. I'm like stressed. I've been with the kids all day doing this, that, running around. She comes home and she's like, I had a really stressful day. I need to go for a walk. And you're just like,
Yeah. Oh.
Enjoy your walk. Thank you.
Go for it. I just like, I could have used that text message like an hour ago.
Yeah, so this wasn't such a...
Because you came home and
Punch in
my
the
heart
face.
started
Oh my
to
God.
sing.
This is like you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
So it's weird. Yeah. So we had that for a while. Then the pandemic hit, and then the stay-at-home order came, and then my wife is now working from home with us. And obviously for this first while, we're all just hunkering down. But then when life started to go back to normal, my wife is still working from home. Her job is just kind of pivoted into that, which a lot of jobs have.
Yeah.
So default parenting is kind of all over the map now. And around the same time, us as the dumb dads have this has become a job now. We're doing brand partnerships and we were working with other companies. So now it's like a weird, like, who, not default, it's now like, who can do that right now? It's
Including
kind
our
of-
family. Sometimes it's all 4 kids are with my wife right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
she has the
that's
day off.
so
'Cause
nice.
my wife doesn't have the day off.
Yeah.
So my wife's working, so his wife's off. So all right, let's bring the kids here and we'll come here and do this. So there's been this like weird, it's default has now turned into who can.
Yeah.
Like, on a lot of stuff. There was one week we were really busy doing something and my wife did everything and it felt weird and I felt bad because she still has a
Guilty.
job. Like, 'cause she still had a job and she's still like doing the laundry, cleaning the house, and I was like in and out every day and it was weird. So we don't have that, but for a while I was the default parent and it was cool. I will say, as much as there's so much stress to it, I get to say I got to do that, and
Yes.
I'm happy I got to have those moments in those years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, the stressful stuff doesn't stick with you. You remember being stressed, but
Yeah.
like for the most, besides that like funny story, which is like objectively hilarious to me of my wife saying she needed to go for a walk, like we laugh about it later because nobody was wrong in that scenario. I think that's the funniest part of that scenario.
This is what I try and say all the time. Like,
Yeah.
I am not saying anything is my husband's fault. I'm saying this is the situation,
That's
and
not what
it's
the comment
difficult.
section thinks.
Right? And that was going to be my question for you guys, because I talk a lot about like
Yeah.
a lot of stay-at-home moms relate with things that I talk about, because it is those like nuanced situations of
Yeah.
my husband comes home from work and I'm so excited and he starts doing laundry and I'm like, like, I just want you to be here like with Milo and me
Right.
and not like go off to do something. And then it's usually men in the comments are like, oh, okay. Like, it's so difficult to watch Netflix all day and your husband comes home. He's
Yeah.
working a job and he's coming home and doing laundry. Like,
Yeah.
so how do you guys interpret those comments? Because now you've had the experience of being home and being the default parent. So are you like, oh, this...
Do you get the comment? I don't get it a lot, but we've gotten the comment a few times. Do you ever get the comment of, it's always a man who will say, I was a stay-at-home dad for a while, and to be honest, not that hard.
100%.
We've gotten that a
always.
few times. and I
Then
was
you
like,
weren't doing it. Then you
Yeah.
weren't.
I
parenting.
should have like just. I usually just ignore it, but I should just comment every time, just going, "What are you doing, man?"
You guys could like video reply in sketch,
Yeah,
That
We
would
could.
be
We could.
would be good.
We could
I did on the daylight
go
savings
after
time
some
one.
people.
Yeah.
We've done it before a couple times. We focus. I mean, here's the other thing too is like, obviously we're not the kind of content creators that like just throw out the phone and film something really quick and post it because it's a thought or whatever. Like, we curate what we're posting. We write it.
Yes,
we
it's
write
very
it.
curated.
And I mean, and some of the stuff that we do, it takes a couple days to make it. So it's our stuff is different in that sense that we post. I mean, it's like, I guess, just much more curated. But my wife's worked from home for a long time, so we've sort of, the default parent thing is not a mess, like Kevin said. It's just in the moment who can do it. She still works from home though, so that's like, And we live in a pretty small space. So like her office is also in the living room. So a lot of times if, when I've been there and the kids want to play, it's like, no, she's on a conference call. We have to leave the room and go somewhere else. But yeah, that's where when our kids were little, we would take them to the zoo or to the park or wherever, But that's the thing. The pandemic just kind of like reset everything because my wife was starting to she would go to the office like twice a week probably. And then it was like, there's a few times where it was like 3 days a week. And then there was a lot of rumors like they're probably going to bring more people back into the office. So it might be a lot less working than pandemic. And it was like 100% work from home until further notice. And it's been like that ever since. So it's just kind of, but it is all over the place. Our schedules now are just insane. So, it is like.
Is every single day so different? Because people are always like, what do you do in a day? Like, what do you, and I'm like, every single day is so different.
Well, because our kids are in school and our little ones are now finally in preschool, which is something we desperately needed because how busy Kevin and I were getting. Now we have like a little Monday through Thursday, we have like a 3-hour block where all 4 of our kids are in some sort of school. And that's where we can get a ton of our stuff done, film something or write something. Yeah, but other than that, there are, because of that, I guess, there are rehearsed things. We both still do school drop off for both of our kids and school pickup for both of our kids. Our 2 little ones go to the same little preschool. So we pick them up and then they go play at the playground for like an hour where they're talking for another hour about whatever, posting who messaged us. We need to respond to this email. So our office hours are like, we probably have like 4 or 5 office hours a day. Sometimes it's like this hour, and then 3 hours later we have 2 more hours, and then when we record our podcast, we film in Kevin's house in his little office. We do it like Tuesday nights. We start at like 9:00. It's all just, our schedules are just sort of everywhere.
Even I'm always impressed that your lives are always at the exact same time. And I always think
we only go live once a week though.
Yeah, I know, but it's always at the exact same time, and I'm like, oh, I need to do something like this.
Part of it was like a good excuse to spend time with our families, not having to watch kids because we're doing something or because our families get along really well. We love each other very much. We love spending time with each other. And so it was sort of an excuse to we should go live more. We never go live. Okay, well, let's just do Thursdays at 6:00 and then we can have dinner together. And then we don't really talk about podcast stuff or anything content-wise. We just sit and talk as families, and our kids all have dinner together and stuff. They all get to spend time together. So it was a little bit of an excuse to let's not lose that though. We spent a lot of time together before we started doing all this stuff because we enjoy each other's company so much.
Right.
So it was kind of an excuse to do a little bit of both.
Yeah. To kind of maintain friendship and not have it always be work related.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk about bedtime routines because a couple weeks ago, my husband was like, our bedtime routine is, I don't know if this is elaborate or this is normal. So we do bath time around 7 p.m.
Every day?
Yeah.
We're in a drought.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in a drought. Pass. Next comment.
Our child is squeaky clean. And
our kids are squeaky.
Then we go to our bed. We put him in his PJs. He has his snack. We watch some shows. It's like an hour-long thing.
Okay.
And then one of us goes and puts him down, reads a book, whatever. And
do you guys alternate that?
It's
who goes in and reads the book and
who brings him to his room. It's who he wants. We say, do you want mommy to go or daddy to go? And sometimes he's on a daddy kick, sometimes he's on a mommy kick.
Sure.
And
oh, he alternates it pretty good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So
I'm not welcome in that room.
Oh no.
That's pretty much how that goes. I'll let you finish, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we do that. And then we do the bath time and the when we're in bed watching TV and stuff, we do that together. We have since day one. And I always find it interesting when some couples are the mom does bedtime routine consistently, and I'm like, well, then how do you go out of town for a night? How do they take over, right? Because then kids get so attached to the one parent. So I really like the situation where we can both do everything. But the other day my husband was like, how long do we have to do this for? Is he going to be 13? No. Is he going to be 13?
A while.
And we're sitting here watching shows with him. I'm like, yeah, when does bedtime routine end or become less of a significant hour-long thing? And also, when do they start to bathe themselves? Where you can be like, go have a shower. Go.
How old is he?
He's 4.
You have some time. I mean, my daughter is like on the cusp there. She just likes to enjoy a bath to herself, occasionally the shower.
Mm-hmm.
Her bedtime routine has gotten really funny of how like she's just becoming her own person, and we love it because every night now she goes to bed. She brings like several different flashlights. She's got a little unicorn that lights up. She brings a stack of papers and a pen, and she just goes to bed and just lights up her bed, and you can sit with her and talk to her for a while, and she's very welcoming of that. But for the most part, she's just drawing pictures. Yesterday she was doing her own, and this isn't a flex, like she's a good student. She's in first grade, like whatever, but she was like making up math problems yesterday in her bed. She was like, all right, Johnny has 8 apples, and she just like drew a picture, and I was like, she just likes to draw and do weird stuff. So like that is kind of going away, but we still do the milk. We still do like milk and stories. Almost every night. Some nights if it gets late, it's just like, oh no, that was your bedtime routine. Like that's what we will do a lot. Like we went to movies in the movies, not in the park, but at his kid's school for like their PTA fundraiser. We all went there. It got out at like 8:30, got home at 9, and we were like, all right, guys, let's get pajamas on, brush teeth. We're going to bed. And they were like, we're going to read books. No, that was the movie that we watched. Mm-hmm. It's too late for that. And they're pretty good about that. Even my 3-year-old is just like, okay, fine. My 3-year-old's a little bit of like a scumbag where he,
they are
every night he's like, I want mommy in my bed. Like, no to you. Like, looks me in the eyes. Like, I don't want you in my bed. Get out of here. I want mommy in my bed. And I'm like, all right, cool. Mommy goes in the bed. Then I say goodnight to my daughter. I leave the room. My wife leaves the room. Like 5 minutes later, my son comes in and goes, Daddy, you didn't cuddle me.
Aww.
And I was like, get out of here. You just wanted an excuse to get out of bed.
Yeah.
I'm not playing that game right now.
But the routine is, I don't know. I don't know when it's going to end, but we just kind of just keep doing it. It's definitely going to end. Like my daughter's kind of signaling that like I would be okay if you just shut the door behind me. I like you can tell that she's like, and she's a very sweet, loving kid and loves to like cuddle up on the couch and stuff still, but like you can tell she's kind of like enjoying the me time at the end of the day.
Yeah. Some nights Milo's like kind of like needy, and he doesn't want us to leave, and he's like, one more book. But sometimes he is so into what he's doing, he always goes over to the nightlight with his little toys, and he's like playing in the nightlight, like so he can see them. I had to like move the nightlight from high up to like bring it down so he could play with his toys. Yep. And sometimes I'll be like, honey, like you shouldn't play with the nightlight, like it's dangerous, because he sometimes will try and unplug it, and he'll be like, Mommy, you can leave now. You can go.
Those comments are not welcome in this room.
Yeah. He's like, you can go now, Mommy. I'm like, okay. Like, just don't electrocute yourself, please. We're downstairs with the monitor, like, please.
Yeah. And then the lights flicker, and you're like, oh, I'm going to head back up there.
I bought it because I couldn't find it. I went to like a big box like hardware store. I went to like a parenting store. I don't know, like there was a shortage or something, but I couldn't find one of those like outlet covers for the kids' room. So I went and I bought like an outdoor one that looks nice. It's not like the metal one, but like a plastic kind of like outdoor outlet, and drilled that onto their outlet because I was like, it's next to my son's mattress. Like he's laying down, he can reach and just grab the outlet, and it's like I don't feel comfortable with that.
Totally. Okay. And what is your bedtime routine? Is it an hour long?
It's probably somewhere in the vicinity of that.
Okay.
I mean, we probably start 8:15 or so. Like, let's go brush our teeth, put PJs on.
So what time do your kids go to bed?
That long. Like, our kids go to bed essentially at 8:30.
Okay, similar, yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Well, because like we will always say like, real quick answer, we'll say 7:30. I don't know the last time they went to bed at 7:30. I think like 7:30 is like, it's not when bedtime routine starts. Like that kind of starts at 7. Yeah. And then I'd say an hour minimum if you're including bath time, 2 hours, because now they like don't bathe together.
I never even thought of that.
Yeah. That changes the game up. But it's like, it's fine because you can then you can give them their own personal time, which is nice. Like at that time. So like my daughter's bathing, then we can like read bored books that my daughter would hate, and then vice versa. We can sometimes do that. Sometimes I like to read together, but you can swap it up. But it can take about an hour and a half sometimes.
I mean, yeah, we don't bathe every night. So, but to answer another part of one of your questions, my son is 7. He showers himself. We'd say, you got to go take a shower. But he's probably been doing that since 6. He's probably doing that. He's 7 now, but he's been doing that since
and
he's
it's
about
just
6.
shower?
Yeah, we convinced him to. Sometimes he likes to take a bath, but we convinced him to take showers because he would like complain, like, I don't want to go take a bath. Or he's like, when the kids like whining because they're doing something and you're telling them to stop what they're doing and go take a bath or something. But we're like, just go take a shower then. You'll be done in 5 minutes. You know, if all you do is go in there and clean your body and come back out, it's 5 minutes. Like, and then every time we convince him to do that, he's in there for 25 minutes. I can hear him in there like, whatever, pretending he's in like a rainstorm, fighting warriors or whatever. He's in there yelling and screaming that he's doing, and you're like, whatever, just. You're like to tears earlier saying, I didn't want to have to go take a bath. Now you're in there having great
That's
time.
literally kids. No bath. I'm not getting in the bath.
Yeah.
Okay, now you're fighting them to get out of the bath.
wow.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
Make it make sense.
45 minutes begging him to get in and an hour to get him out of there. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would say I joke that I'm not allowed in the room, but they prefer for mommy to sit and read them stories.
Mm-hmm.
And about like once a week or so, they ask if I can read one of the books or something. So
And you just
the way
do
things,
such a bad job.
so yeah, no voices,
Big words.
yeah, well, I just skip past those.
Yeah.
So my wife sits in there, and now the other thing is too, like we sit in there with them until they're pretty much asleep. They share a room, and there's like a little bunk bed situation, and we'll read the stories. We always read 2 books. That's what we kind of limit it. Pick 2 books. You pick one. You pick one.
Mm-hmm.
We'll read those, and then once we read those, then the lights go out, and then probably sit there for 10 minutes or so. It usually takes about 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes before they're both like pretty much, if not asleep, asleep enough to where we can leave the room.
Did you guys ever have bedtime? I call them bedtime battles with your kids. Like,
What do you mean?
Like they don't want to go to sleep. Like if we stayed in Milo's room, he would never. Well, he might fall asleep eventually, but he's
better if you just leave the room and turn off the lights.
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily. My son, even at 7, still like, can you please sit with us for a little bit? Like he just gets afraid he'll have a nightmare or something. So that's part of the reason.
Mm-hmm.
But once in a while, because he's of that age now, we'll do like maybe like once a month or so on like a Friday or Saturday night. We'll say, my wife and our elbow and be like, you want to stay up late tonight? And so we'll put the little one to bed and he stays up. We like watch something and play video games for like a half an hour and then, just hang out until like 10 o'clock until he's like really tired. And he'll think like, we're going to stay up all night together. Like we're just going to be crazy out here. But really it's like watch a show, play a video game for half an hour. Then he'll like get a little more comfortable on the couch, and then after about 10, 15 or so, he'll be like, I think I need to go to bed. Because he's like, I can't go with, I don't know, I can't do this.
He's like me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's already like an adult. He's like, listen, I got a big day tomorrow. I got to get to bed. So I think maybe sometimes that helps a little bit with, like, sometimes it's okay to stay up late if you're not tired or whatever. And sometimes he'll ask as well.
Yeah.
If he's not tired, he'll say, can we stay up late tonight? And like, no, it's
that.
Wednesday. So no.
Yeah.
But maybe Friday.
Yeah, we definitely have bedtime battles. And it's just consistent. It's harder with our 6-year-old because if she just keeps coming out of the room, she just keeps coming out of the room. The 3-year-old's a little easier because I will just. It's funny, you forget to do it every time, but like kind of. I mean, obviously, whatever works best for your kid works best for your kid. But for us, what works best is like, and we forget to do it until like the 5th, 6th, 7th time, where he comes out. There's no negotiating. There's no talking. Which we forget because he'll come out and go, what are you doing? And then he talks, and then you talk, and you send him back to bed, and then he comes back out, and you're like, buddy, we just talked about this. And then, like, it happens like 4 or 5 times, and you just realize, like, oh, no, I just got to scoop him up. Don't say anything. Put him in bed. Tell him I love you so he doesn't think, like, I'm being a jerk. And if I do that, that'll eventually, he'll stop coming out.
The excuses as to why they're coming out of bed are infinitely hilarious.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Like we were podcasting at his house like a couple weeks ago, and his little kid comes in, and we're like about to hit record, and he comes in the room, he's like, Daddy, we're like, no. He's like, you got to go to bed, buddy. Sorry. And he goes, yeah, but we need some tape.
It's like, yeah. I was like,
what?
No.
First of all, what is going on? No, never mind. I don't want to know the answer to that. Just go to bed.
That is so funny.
Our kids.
Just some tape, and we're on our way. You guys are going to go, we just need some tape.
They try and like, Milo will be like, oh, mommy. And I'm like, yes, honey. Like as I'm leaving the door, and he'll be like,
He's like, come on, you have
Sharks eat fish and then they die. And I'm like, okay, honey, have a
So
good
do-
sleep. Like,
okay,
he's
honey, yeah.
trying to think
So
of
do
what
pescatarians. Good night.
To say. Yeah. Like, the stuff that comes out of their mouth, like, because they just don't want you to leave the room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, attitude. I heard you talking about, I think it was your daughter having attitude as they're getting older. She's 6. Milo's 4. And it's hilarious. And I think he's getting it from me. Like, and he uses things in the proper context, which is hilarious. And if I like pick the wrong show, like I'll put on YouTube on the TV and I make it like, he'll be like, oh, that one right there. Put on a show. And he's like, that's mommy, the frickin' frick. Like, that's not the frickin'. And I'm like,
Yes.
oh my God. Like, you want to be like, this behavior is not okay, but it's also hilarious and so
It's also how we
cute.
behave.
It's also how we behave.
Yes.
The most important thing is not to laugh
Oh, it's so
Or-
hard. I'm
or
like,
react in a way that they know, but in the moment, and it's hilarious. I mean, speaking of attitude, where were we? I think it was at the movie screening that my wife was talking to my son, and he was like, can't we just go do this thing? Whatever he's asking, can I just go do this thing? She's like, sorry, honey, no. And he's like, well, why not? And she's like, starts to explain, and he's like, but I want to go. She's like, hold on. And so she's like explaining why. And he keeps just nagging her about it, as not even letting her finish talking about it. And then she's like explaining what's going on, what's going to happen. This is the rule. And he goes, will you just let me finish? And she was like, oh, wow. Okay. Let's all just take a step back here for a second. It's like,
it's funny when like adult things come out of their mouth. Like
know.
sometimes Milo will be like, I want to do what I want to do. And I'm like,
yeah, welcome to the club.
stop talking to me. And I'm like, like, what do you say? Yeah, I love it so much.
Yeah, my daughter, like, part of it's like, yeah, they're mimicking your behaviors, and then some of it is just like, I don't understand what's wrong. I just told you the truth. Like, I think my wife drew a picture once, and she was like, what do you think of this? And my daughter was like, oh, that's not very good. And my wife was like, oh, well, that's not very nice. I worked on that. And she was like, I know, and I love that you worked on it. But it is not very good. It's just like,
Are you gentle
Parenting me?
childing me?
Yeah. It was really like, okay, that's fair. She told my wife, and this is like,
But just remember, wait till you draw a picture next time and we'll talk about that.
we don't say this in my house. I can confidently say we'd never use this phrase in my house. So she must have heard it from school, but it was or from like a show or something. But the other day they were in the car, and I think I forget what my wife said, but she was saying something silly, and my daughter just goes, "No, Mom, shut up." And my wife goes, what? And my daughter immediately just like bawled for like the rest of the car ride. She's like, I don't know why I said that. Sometimes my mouth does things before my brain can stop it, and I just say things. So like, she felt horrible. And my wife was laughing. She was like, that's very funny.
That has happened like when Milo in like a outburst like will hit.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, that's not nice. Like once he processes that like he hurt mommy, and then he starts bawling, and I'm like, okay, now I feel like shit
I know.
because you're upset that
Yeah.
you hit me across the face. Like
Oh, I always think
parents can't win.
Yeah.
I feel I'm in your camp. I feel like then I feel guilty that I was real about it, or I don't know. That's a weird thing.
I'm good with it.
Kevin's fine with it.
I'm good with it because it's honest. You want to be honest with your kids. I would
For sure.
I would like my daughter to know she upset me. I'm not going
Yes.
to milk it. And I think that's important.
Yeah.
But I don't want, like, I'll try to console her and be like, it's okay, don't worry about it. But if I have a real reaction, I'm okay with her being upset with the consequences of doing something or saying something that hurt me or hurt my wife, or, it's not very nice. And it's like, she gets upset, and it's like, cool. Because
Then at least you know they're understanding
and
what
tho-
happened.
and those
Yeah, I mean, I
moments-
think that's important too, that they understand it. But
yeah.
still, it's not like
you feel bad.
it's not like seeing my kids cry. You know what I mean?
For sure. And those
Kevin
moments,
loves watching
those
his
moments.
kids cry.
It's just
Favorite
it's
pastime.
one in my corner. We don't get any victories. I don't even get showers.
It's
like a prison.
one little tiny victory.
But you remember those moments as a kid, when you were a kid, those moments that like sucked, that like still make you cringe at 2 a.m. or on the car, like by yourself.
Like, I can't believe I did
Like,
that.
I said that. You're the worst. But those like help shape your character. And if they're not the worst moments in the world, like, yeah, it sucks your kid has it. I hate watching my kids cry, but at the same time, you're like, all right, this could be worse. I'd rather this happen here to me every time than happen out there in the world.
And I guess what's the alternative? You want them to be like, ha ha ha, sucker.
Yeah.
I guess it's the response that you would hope that they have as a human.
Right. I guess that's my point.
Yeah.
It's the empathy is like pouring through out of their eyes. And it's
Literally.
great. So
I mean, I think you're right too. That's part of I don't really know how to say this, the ugly side of parenting, or like that the stuff that's like that's part of teaching people how to be people, I guess. Is like there's tough moments as well, but we've all, even at this table, have had what we consider a tough moment in our life that changed our way of thinking about something, you know, and that's the little things that we teach our kids and have experiences with our kids. Kevin says it right. I mean, I'd 100% rather be there with them in that moment to teach them through it, talk them through it, than hear all about it and how it went and what did they say to you and what happened, you know, later.
There's shut up to the teacher. It's a whole different ballgame.
It's a whole different ballgame. And like, and those moments are going to happen in their life, and when they leave the house and have jobs and all these things, and that hopefully you've coached them through how to handle some of that kind of stuff. You know, if they make a mistake, how do they respond to making a mistake, you know?
So speaking of hard moments, the other night, this was like 2 nights ago, we were at a restaurant and Milo's like, he's fine, like doing his thing at a restaurant. They seated us next to a piano. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I have a 4-year-old and Milo was sitting like, his chair is here, the piano's here. And so the whole time he's like, looks at me. I'm like, no, don't. Mom, what is this? I'm like, it's a piano. And he's like, I like piano. But anyways, in the middle of dinner, he all of a sudden just said, and I'm going to use the name Zach. It was like one of his little buddy at school. Yeah. Like, we had recently played at the park with him and they were like best buds. And he was like, Zach told me today that he didn't want to be my friend anymore. And I was like, put my fucking nacho tip down. I was like, what? Like, what? Like, my heart shattered. Yeah. I felt so bad. And I feel like as he gets older, things like this are going to happen. And it's so hard as the parent to hear that. And I was just like, well, maybe he was having a bad day. And so have social things with your children ever come up?
You're going to be so surprised how dramatic something like second grade is.
Oh.
It's wild.
And to them, it's such a big deal, and it means everything.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah.
I mean, again, they've only collected so many experiences throughout their life, especially ones outside of the house, especially after living 2.5 years inside of a pandemic.
Yeah.
Right. So school and social stuff is like learning and fast forward for them right now, I think. And the stuff that my son will come home and say, like, I picked my son up from school, get in the car. How's your day? It's a good day. 2 really bad things happened. And then he'll go over what those are. And those are like, that's a bad thing. Oh, wow. How's that a bad thing? You know, like the tether ball hit my friend in the chest and she cried. And it makes it sound like the day we barely recovered from that, which is like, okay, was she fine? He's like, yeah, well, yeah, she was fine. I was like, okay. But the way he frames all that stuff, like there was a huge dark moment in my day today.
Yeah.
That we all barely made it through. It's like, what? That's it? You know, or like we were all, one of my friends or this kid that we know that we used to hang out with and play with said something to our friend that upset her. And so we were all mad at him for her, all of us were. So that was, it's like, oh my God, this is crazy that like that shaped his whole day, you know, that something like that happened. So,
and he'll probably think about it for weeks.
He'll think about it for a few days at least. And then but then at the same time, next week, it's like, you remember that kid that did this? Yeah, well, he said sorry. And then we were drawing today. He drew the funniest thing. We all laughed. We're all really good friends now.
Yeah,
like, oh my
exactly.
God.
I know. And my mom always said, she's like, it might not seem like a big deal to you because like on paper, even when Milo was younger, like 2, 3, didn't want to get in the bath because he couldn't bring in his new like Buzz Lightyear. That was an electronic toy. And he would have a meltdown because that's like his best friend and he can't bring him in the bathtub with him. But as a parent, if you're just looking at it without putting yourself in their shoes, it's like you can't bring the fucking electronic toy in the bathtub. Like,
Right.
get over it. Like, this is stupid, right?
I know.
But
all it is him, you saying, you can't do this.
Yeah,
That's
and like,
all that's
he's
processing.
like my best friend. Like, I have to part with this thing and leave him there. And like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get him back. Like, if you put yourself in their shoes, it is a big deal. And
It is a big deal.
I remember my mom being like, you can't minimize things that they think are a big deal. Like,
it's what they're going through.
Yeah.
It's like, think about the job, the job that you had that now looking back was a dumb job, but you'd get so worked up that like Chelsea called in again and now you've got to pick up this, and none of that mattered, but it's all you were going through at the moment. That's the same for them. Like, to them, the most intense thing they're going through is second grade, is first grade. My daughter does go through those emotional things. I will say she does not understand the world of crushes, and it's very funny. She gets so annoyed that she basically cannot have a friend who's a boy without everyone being like, you have a crush on so-and-so. It infuriates her.
what grade is 6?
She's first grade.
First grade.
But she'll come home and she'll just be like, everyone thinks I have a crush on Zach. And it's just so annoying. I just like chasing him because he really scares him. And you're just like, great, that's awesome. And because she doesn't understand the full spectrum now, like, she hasn't done it in a little while, so I think we're finally getting off that train. But she was talking about like her best friend, and she's like, yeah, I just love playing with her. I don't have a crush on her, but I love her. Does that make sense to you? And I was like, yeah, it makes sense to me. Okay, it's just I don't have a crush on her, but I love her. Does that make sense? I was like, yeah, you're you're first grade. None of this makes sense.
None of it makes any
crushes
sense.
don't make sense. It's fine. You're on the right track, but they do get dramatic about a lot of things.
Yeah. Oh, children. Are you guys looking forward to the teenage years or not?
Yes and no.
I feel like a lot of people are like warn me. They're like, oh, just wait till like teenage years. It's awful. But then I also talk to people and they're like, I actually love the teenage years, like the conversations I can have with my child. Like,
that's what I'm looking forward to the most, is that you're really, it's like as soon as you have a kid, you think like, it's gonna be like my little buddy, you know, like my little friend we go everywhere with. We're gonna go to the store together. We're gonna do everything we do together. We're gonna do together. And then it takes a long time for you to even really have any sort of a conversation with them, anything at all. And then that conversation is pretty minimal because they're a new person.
Yeah.
So I really do look forward to that stuff. It's intimidating because those conversations are going to involve things that terrify them or that make them really nervous for real reasons, you know, those kinds of things. But
things that you as an adult can probably relate to and be like, oh,
so
like,
I feel
for them.
I feel like I'd probably be better prepared to teach them those kinds of things as opposed to, you know, the things like something as simple as you have to remember that it's their feeling in the moment. That's it's a big deal that he can't bring the toy into the bathtub when that's simplistically the only thing he wants. And you're like, I can't really explain to you why some toys are run on batteries and it would ruin it, and then to be upset that it wouldn't work tomorrow, and because you're not going to understand all that. So it's hard to relate to that point of view, which makes raising little kids very difficult, I think. Not to say it's going to be easy when they're older, but I think that's the point, is that you can relate to a little bit more of it at least.
Yeah. And I think also you get to see all your hard work like has formed this.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
the goal, right?
That's a bold assumption. That's going to go well. Yeah, I'm definitely interested. I'm like fascinated by it. It's like, how is this teenage years thing going to go? Because I mean, it was so fun when we were working at the bar and my daughter was born. I had like the classic like regulars at the bar that were just they were there every day, and like I think I'll never forget this because I was just like, I just came back from paternity leave, and everybody's like, "Congrats, man! That's amazing! It's so awesome having a kid." And like one woman there was like, "Until they become teenagers and they're pieces of shit, and they don't care about you anymore." And I was like, so I just had a kid, and like, that's what you're bringing to the table.
That's what I feel like.
Do you want another martini? Or?
That's what people say to you if you complain about anything to do with raising little kids. They're like, "Oh, wait until they're teenagers." Yeah, which is like
every time.
Yeah,
which is also then it's another way of they just put their entire experience onto you.
Yeah,
like I might like it a lot.
Exactly.
I might like
So what has been your favorite stage of parenting? For me, it's right now. Like Milo is 4. I never wanted another child. And now that I see what's on the other side of like 0 to 3.5,
Yeah.
I'm like, I would like another one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, I'll have to go through those years. I did not enjoy, like, obviously there's really good moments, but like once he started crawling to until about like 3.5, like so difficult.
Yeah.
And it's just not my vibe. Like I'm like the 4-year-old, I'm like, I love this. Like I'm obsessed with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking back, like, yeah, those times were, and I can almost attribute it to, at least with my daughter, we went like camping every year for like the first 4 years of her life. And it was a good representation of like how it was as a parent. Like first one, super easy, wasn't even like parenting. It was just like sustaining a plant.
Mm-hmm.
And because like we went camping, brought the crib that could fit in the tent and like put it down and then got to camp.
Yeah.
Like it was like almost not even there. Then like, as you were saying, the crawling stage, terrible idea. Never bring your kids camping if they can't walk.
No.
But they're crawling. It was awful. Horrible experience. Hated it. I would say I'm in kind of the sweet spot now, like you said, because I've got this 6-year-old that still loves playing with me and doing stuff and is still so excited to show me her drawings and her ideas and tell me things and is not afraid to say something or tell me an idea, which is like awesome and exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got a 3-year-old that's a mess, but he's great. He's so funny. He's such a wild guy. So I have that sweet spot, and I feel like it's like teetering on the edge of like this might be my favorite.
Yeah.
I feel like it's always, for me, going to be a moving line. Like it's probably always going to be currently, because I have, looking back on what it took and what we've gone through together as family and parents to get to where we are with our kids, I think it's probably always going to be where I am now. Mm-hmm. But I will say 2 years old, 3 years old is just hilarious to me. They look cute in everything you put them in.
Yes.
They've just learned to speak a little bit, so they say funny things incorrectly. All that little stuff, I think, was just hilarious to watch. These little kids, like little kids, I think I'll look back and think it was just such a funny little time. When they have like they first have their first little inkling of like their own little personality. It was so fun to watch. Mm-hmm. So that's always probably going to be currently, but I love that moment for both my kids.
All right. So to wrap up, because we're running out of time, what are your plans for the future? Where can people find you online? Is there anything exciting? What I'm trying to say is I'm still waiting for my call to be on a sitcom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just ask the right question.
Unfortunately, so are we.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting.
But you can find us at Dumb Dad Pod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And we are the Dumb Dads on YouTube. And our podcast is the Dumb Dad Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. This was so fun.
Thank you for having us.
And I'm on a roll.